Welcome back to the Torque Test channel. So the results of our Icon Gen 2 ratchet testing we did have hit the interwebs, and people have thoughts. Here on Instagram, the top comment saying, well, Icon did well, but you didn't buy and test 10 of them. Well, Mr. Guy, for one, I don't know how familiar you are with YouTube economics, but unless you're making sponsored deals, integrated ad spots on your channel, which for one our size would be on the order of $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 an episode, plus free products, both of which we don't accept, we're looking at more like $630 for the video in question, or a net negative of $99 after buying the wrenches in question, at least so far, but that's also not counting our time. If we 10 times the wrenches, that's a negative $6,700 instead, which means by the end of the month, we're probably closing up shop. So props to all our peers, channels out there who are able to make this happen. It's a gamble and not always the best route. Big Guy Todd at the top, of course, but for point number 2, Mr. Dude, even Top Dog Todd isn't testing 10 of each of these. Each video, for the most part, just one. We even included 2 of the Icon and Snap-On in our video. For number 3, yeah, let's just do it. It's not a bad idea. Appreciate the suggestion. That's good feedback. Let's make it 10. We won't always be able to just buy 10 of everything. Want to be upfront and honest with you guys about that. But yeah, we bought all of these ourselves as usual, plus some more Snap-On action coming up because more data is always a good thing, and we'll be giving all these poor souls, including the Snap-Ons, away, I don't know, as like keepsakes to anyone who has our rank charts this weekend. No big sweepstakes to enter or type thing, just anyone who has our rankings, assuming you want one of these. You should be able to warranty the Icon without a receipt, should you choose to, and the Snap-Ons will send with a repair kit. And I personally do feel Harbor Freight is the perfect place to try this sort of thing. This comment about consistency rings true for me as well in the past with my own purchases, maybe not power tools so far, but other stuff throughout the store, so maybe it does for you as well. Harbor Freight is famous for having 2, sometimes 3 SKU codes for the same item number, multiple factories, sources for the same item. But is that consistency due to things like that, or is it just quality in general? On a new item like these Gen 2 ratchets, you'd hope there's currently one source, so ideally we'll be able to dive a bit more into that today. What you're looking at now is the breaking in of the ratchets, measuring the back drag after that. What we saw last time was a mix of 4s and 5s, lower being better, but on the whole, across this many, that number actually dropped to more of a solid 4. If you'll watch each one of these examples, it averages to that to match the Snap-On, in fact, probably going the opposite direction most of us assumed going into the video so far. Of course, coming up as the main show, breaking all of these and comparing them to Snap-On, which is a bit silly on its face. We admitted as much last time. Breaking square drive ratchets for the highest score, it's only one piece of the data, and why we prefer categories like open-end wrench testing, where we can measure performance, how well it grips, something less luck of the draw related and baked into its design from the start. As we've retested over a dozen brands multiple ways with these wrenches since getting the pushy machine, and rarely have we found an outlier compared to our past rankings, so that seems like a consistent tool category to test. Speaking of pushy, a day with this hard-working little guy starts with a torque wrench. We pick some solid Newton meter number setting on the torque wrench, then cycle it a bunch of times to ensure it's both accurate and repeatable. Since the arm is flying blind and doesn't do any measuring, it just provides force, it's one of the more simple dynos for us to test before use. The Icon 3/8 ratchets, we're going to see 315 foot-pounds out of, and 310 foot-pounds, or 419.7 newton meters. The third Icon 3/8 that we bought, it's going to put up 394.2, or 294 foot-pounds. The fourth one that hits the dyno lends some weight to this whole idea of doing this process and sees just 246 foot-pounds. Yeah, that's a bit of a range now, and an example that's under the Snap-On as well. From here, it's going to climb back up towards the upper range again, well above that Snap-On. Now, both brands do have lifetime warranty, and both brands make that pretty easy, either coming to your place of work or swapping it over the counter at your local Harbor Freight. This isn't something we've seen amongst their cordless tools. Both Hercules and Bauer, for example, we have bought more than one example of on several tools, and we've dyno tested those like on saws and impact wrenches, and we've seen the dyno be bang on for multiple back-to-back tests on different tools. However, on this, it does appear, well, not at the moment. At the moment, it's continuing on to hit very high, impressive numbers, ratchet after ratchet. But this phenomenon of a gap seems to be a very real thing in this case. The insides don't appear to be any different on that number 4 low score than the others. All these fixed head ones look even less similar, you might be surprised to find, to the Snap-on 3/8 than the flex head version, as they use the snap ring in here and an additional rubber ring seal compared to the flex head. But all 10 do look the same inside. Most of the time you are, if you're flirting with disaster enough to break a tool like this, as how many of us really own a 3/8 breaker bar this long, so you might be tempted to use it if you got it, and if half-inch stuff you don't own or doesn't fit. Most of the time with this, you're going to be well into the 300s, which, well, they're 20 inches long. That does afford you a lot of leverage, but still, that is a lot of torque. But it's when we get to the final one, the number 10 ratchet, well, have a look. .325 or 240 foot-pounds, so it's not a fluke. The inconsistency here, 2 and 10, is pretty massive compared to all the tool testing we've done on the channel historically. No amount, like the number of tools we pick, is going to be perfect, but even Snap-on will tell you, it appears themselves, that the FL80 dual 80 mechanism is good for 250 foot-pounds, and we see on the third example of ours 255 foot-pounds, and on the fourth example, that's all we could round up this week is 4 examples, 349.9 or 258 foot-pounds, with less leverage afforded to you even on their extra long example as well. It doesn't seem to have to do with batch hardness or processing of that hardening either. One of the Icon drives that scored the highest is coming in at 54.9 HRC, which is very hard, but also good for this type of part in a ratchet. And the lowest torque scoring drive we got 54.2 and 54.6 HRC from, so they seem to be hardened as intended. So it appears clear that by defect, quality control, or otherwise, the Snap-on is a quieter, ratcheting better, or at least more consistently better produced product. But also, like, well, yeah, duh. Look at the price. It should be. If for no other reason than they've been making the dual 80 for decades, it should be pretty dialed. Snap-on introduced their 100 tooth ratchets this past year, and most people, including me, don't like it as much, so that can happen even to the top guys. Will Icon ratchets get better and more consistent? Well, only time will tell, and hopefully if they don't involve more factories to produce the same product to keep that going. The fact is, even when we update the scores here, which include their new backdrag and lowered torque, which we're using an average of, but it's still grouping in score-wise with the existing highest place Snap-on here, after all these changes, the ranking doesn't reorder at all. Snap-on fixed head in first, KTC Nepros first in the flex head, which is the real takeaway I feel. Buy a flex head Nepros. It's probably the best option if you got the money. But yeah, not far behind is the Icon fixed head here and the Icon and Snap-on flex heads, 2.75 points apiece. They remain good. Sometimes you may need to warranty your Icon at around the Snap-on, like where that would have broken, but often you'll be able to get instead into the 300s, which is pretty good. It's more like the USA made versus Taiwan, supporting a store and its employees versus a factory and your dealer. Small differences like the consistency of feel in the flex head, consistency of torque, quieter mechanism, all those things that you have to determine for yourself how much those things are worth to you. Either way, I feel it's a rising tide lifting all boats situation. There's more better options in this category today than there ever has been, and either by the low prices that creates or the innovation and improvement that forces out of brands at the top like Snap-on, either way, you guys are going to win, which is pretty encouraging. We won't be buying 10 of every tool going forward. Unfortunately, it's not feasible, but always encourage watching multiple sources, not just us on YouTube, which is probably even better than one source buying 10 in my opinion. Though we will continue on tools that test well or abnormally well to purchase more when we test that category again. For instance, we've bought this Wolfbox Turbo Duster fan thing 3 times now for ourselves. One for each episode to ensure that they aren't going downhill in quality. We'll try to do that more now on Harbor Freight items that are standouts in performance, testing multiple sizes like we do with wrenches, or buying additional examples for the episode just to include more data and, well, do our best, as we always try to do. If you want a memento from today's episode, we'll be emailing random rank charts owners this weekend, just so these don't end up in a landfill. Thanks for watching.